So your players walk into a tavern. You could say, they serve stew. Or you could say, the broth clings thick to the spoon, carrots dissolve into sweetness, while a sharp pepper bite warms your chest, as though the meal itself knows how long the road has been. One of these makes your players nod politely, the other makes them drool, and makes you look like a pro. Welcome, my friends, to the art of becoming a cultured GM. The problem here we'll call flat GMing, and it isn't that your players don't care, it's that your story doesn't land the way it should. You've imagined the cursed forest as horrifying, but the players just walk through it, or you've pictured the feast as unforgettable, but it came out as you eat stew. You're imagining Lord of the Rings in your head, but when the words come out of your mouth, you sound like you're narrating the instructions from IKEA. And I don't want you to think the problem here is your story, because it's not. It's the gap between you imagining it in your head and then the words coming out of your mouth describing it. And it's not difficult to fix. The cure isn't just more words, it's the right layers. A cultured GM learns how to render scenes like a movie, not flat, not blurry, but with important parts in 4K. Flamey, what do you mean by render scenes? If you've ever used a 3D software like Blender, or you've tried putting a game scene together on Unreal Engine or Unity, and don't think these are the only two, these are just my experiences. It's about adding visual details like texture, colour, lighting, shadows, to a basic shape, into a compelling representation that shows the viewers your vision. And that's the main part here, is that you're trying to show your vision to your players. And the way that I do that is with a 4-step cinematic scene render. You can make it more complex if you want, but I like to keep it simple with a 4-step formula. First I add atmosphere or mood, the wash that sets the tone. This could be fog in a forest. The depth, which is your texture. These are the background details that give space. Think plants or rocks or anything else in the scene that isn't the main focus. And then your focus or spotlight, the thing in high definition. And then the last step I think about is the interaction, the response. Basically, how will it react when the players touch it? That's my flamey formula. Atmosphere, depth, focus, interaction. And here's a quick example for you. Let's use the blighted forest. A flat GM would say, you walk through a dead forest. You add some culture to it, using the 4 steps. And you've got your atmosphere. A pale mist clings to the ground, heavy and still, as though the air itself refuses to move. Your depth. Branches loom like skeletal arms, ferns sag under dew, and somewhere a raven croaks once before silence swallows it. And then you've got your focus. Ahead a tree leans at an unnatural angle. Its bark is split open, peeling in strips that ooze tar, black resin. The smell is sharp, vinegar and smoke. And then you've got your interaction. You touch it, and the resin clings to your skin, warm, sticky, faintly burning. The tree shudders, almost as if it's breathing. This doesn't just achieve a more flavourful experience. You're setting the scene, but you're also highlighting things that you want them to interact with, without telling them to interact with it. It's like having a big red button, and then above it on a sign you have, don't push the big red button. They're gonna push it. Your atmosphere is setting the mood before anyone acts. The depth is giving shape without drowning in detail. The focus is telling the players where to look, and interaction makes the world respond so it feels alive. Together they transform a passing description into a moment the players remember. Think about next session when you're doing your recap. You're going to sit there and say, what happened? And then the players are going to go, well, we walked through a forest. There was a tree that was all sticky. Or you give them the more detailed description, and they say, the forest was creepy and the tree was all sticky and felt like it was alive. Steve touched it and got stuck to it, and then we all had to spend half an hour trying to pull him off. Lou used animal handling and spoke to the raven, who said there was a special kind of moss nearby that when you put it with water can be used to remove the stickiness. You're missing out on key moments your players could be having, but they don't get it because you didn't describe it properly. Let's circle back to the tavern that had the stew. Let's set the scene in the tavern. The atmosphere. Heat rolls from the hearth. Smoke curling into the rafters where laughter and song muddle together. The depth. Platters clatter. Mugs foam over with ale, and a sweet bite of roasting apples cuts through the air. Focus. A steaming plate of venison is set before you, glazed in honey and spiced with pepper. The skin crunches under your knife while rosemary and char rise in waves. Interaction. You take a bite, and the glaze clings to your lips, sweetness giving way to pepper heat that warms your chest. Now I know the first thing my players would do, they'd be trying to find out where them roasted apples come from. And then the rogue would be going over to the table with all the laughter and see if they're playing any games he can get in on. It's little things like this that tell the party what kind of tavern they're in. And yes, I know, you can do it other ways. You're in the bad side of town, you're in the good side of town. But this is more fun. And even if you do tell them which side of town you're in, you can still have a nice tavern. And the real secret sauce of becoming a cultured GM, you don't need to study everything. You already have the culture built into your life. If you're a chef or just love cooking, your taverns will come alive. Describe the crackle of the fat in the pan, the way cinnamon warms your nose, the glaze that clings to lips. Your players will be begging for snacks at the table. If you're a mechanic or an engineer, your forges and dungeons will hum with life. You know the smell of oil, the sound of grinding steel, the way tools feel when they've been used for too long. Use it. If you're a gardener or nature lover, forests are your kingdom. You can describe waxy leaves, damp soil, and the way rot sets in at edges before spreading inward. And if it's not something you're familiar with, try think of the things you do know and relate them to it. Try and break something down you do understand, and then see if you can relate that to something you don't. Players can tell when you're speaking from something you know, and it's not just flavour then, it's authenticity. And it makes your game world uniquely yours. And don't think every example needs 4 layers, sometimes a quick contrast shows the point. Like a dungeon door, you can say there's a door at the end. Hinges bloom with rust, scratches gouge fresh furrows. You push it, and the scream of metal echoes like a wounded animal. Your players will be gritting their teeth thinking, shit, I've just alerted everyone that I'm here. Battlefields, bodies lie across the field. Or you can say, a grey haze stinks of ash and smoke. Crows bicker over scraps, while a single helm lies crushed in the dirt. Its dent a frozen record of the killing blow. If you breeze over it, you're making it seem like it doesn't matter. You add some depth, and the players might say, let's get the crows away from them so they stop pecking at the bodies and see if we can go bury them. And you've got to remember that nobody's brain works the same. If you give a brief overview, then each player's going to be thinking a different scene in their head. But if you describe it in better detail, they're coming together and having the same vision of what's actually going on. It's not about showing off, it's about projecting your imagination faithfully so your scenes land. Players don't just hear what you said, they actually feel it. And then you finally get the satisfaction of your story hitting the way you pictured it in your head. And if your players are drooling, wincing, or nervously shifting their dice, congrats, you're a cultured GM now. Flamey, what's the best way to learn this? Don't overwhelm yourself, build the habit. 1 cinematic render per session. Pick a scene that matters, the Cursed Grove, the Tavern Feast, the boss lair. Render it with all 4 steps. Over time you'll instinctually know how to make your world breathe. If you're struggling for inspiration, then watch a movie or TV show. Look at it with a storyteller's eye. Break down the scene so you can see the individual parts. And make sure you pick the right music for the right scene. When you're writing your scene, or you're thinking of it, have the music in your mind. Try and find it. It helps you envision what you're trying to describe. So don't let flat GMing rob you of your own cool moments. Render your scenes cinematically. Add your atmosphere, your depth, your focus, your interactions. Bring your passion, and watch your story shine. And remember, in this tavern, they don't just serve stew, they serve culture. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, stay spicy, adventurers.